Welcome to this week's episode of the Indy podcast. You saw the title, you guessed it. We're talking about the invasion in Ukraine, the sub stories, all the headlines, all the information that's happened up to date to last week. We don't know if things have changed, but persist with us, see what our thoughts are, and jump through to the next bit. We jump into a bunch of topics, and I'm sure you guys are going to learn a little bit about it and stuff you probably didn't know about from me and Karan's point of view. Catch you there. Cheers. What's up, people? Welcome to this week's episode of the Indian Dots podcast. And there's not much to talk about this week, Doctor, is there? Like, what's been going on in the world? I got one. The MPs got a raise. They got a raise today. £2,200 raise. Yeah, that's the biggest headline of the week. So what's been going on with you, man?
So one thing does come to mind, which I know has not escaped you, Indy, because we've spoken about it at depth. The 24th of February, 2022 will be marked down in history as a major event. You know, the world changed. It's still evolving. It's so fresh that we don't, I don't know, the gravity of situation obviously is impacting some people, but I don't think it's not, everybody isn't talking about it yet. And obviously the thing I'm talking about is that Russia has invaded Ukraine. And we go back to the Second World War, when the Second World War started, that Hitler invaded Poland. That was a sovereign state at the time with no form of provocation. Obviously, in this, we've had the Russian ambassadors on various platforms, consulates, mainly at the UN, basically saying, well, this is provoked in the Minsk agreement. And we're trying to get rid of the neo-Nazism which exists. So we're actually doing.
Let's take a step back. Hang on. So, since we are dissecting this topic, let's dissect it in depth. Yeah, let's go to the start. So the 24th of Feb happened, where Russia.
Where were you
Ukraine?
When you found out?
I woke up in the morning. I jumped onto work and typed into the news, because what happened was at work, some of the markets that I'm in control of weren't spending. And I was like, what's going on? And then I jumped online and I was like, oh, it's because of this world event that no one's really shopping. They're looking at the world event that's happening. So yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm like, shit, okay. And I actually started looking at it and I didn't think he would actually go through with it, to be honest. I was thinking, wow.
Right, because what's the build-up? A couple of weeks before.
Well, the build-up was like he was threatening to, but when he officially signed over...
What do we see? And because the news teams are aware, like we kept saying, "Oh, forces by the border." We talked about this. We were like, "Oh, it's leverage."
It seemed like it, yeah. It seemed like it, but no one thought he was actually nuts enough to go in. And then when he officially signed documents saying that he saw some states in Ukraine as parts of Russia, that was his intentions. And then some going to war. And as you said, he's going to war to stop this mass genocide that he thinks is happening. That's not happening, and he's going to start the denazification of Ukraine, even though the guy in charge of Ukraine is Jewish. So it doesn't really stick, the stuff he's saying. And it's sad, man. Like, I saw you on the weekend. What was the thing that Shindy said? Don't keep looking at it all day. Just look at, I guess she said the highlights. And when she said the highlights, she kind of meant just look at the end of the news at the end of the day. Don't keep looking at it. And I started looking at it during the day, and man, like everywhere you turn on social media is there. And it's like, yo, I can't get away from this. It's just in your face all the time, because there's so many new pieces of information being put out there every day that they have to kind of look at, and they start dissecting and diving into.
It's a live unfolding event. And I see I'm of a different perspective. It's very rare that actually I follow something so intentionally and sort of intently as something like this type of, like a real, like I said, evolving conflict. Whereas me watching it doesn't make me, it doesn't put me like, for example, in a sad mood. Obviously, I am empathetic to the situation, and it is obviously horrible what is happening to both the soldiers of Ukraine and just, normal civilian population. But, we are in the midst, and this could be, people are saying, well, this could be the start of the World War III. And so for me, this is, you have to be watching this, man, as this unfolds. Like I have to know. I can't hear this from somewhere else. I have to then form an opinion based on what I'm seeing. So I'm very much immersed. Like I went for my walk today, 10,000 steps, had my headphones in. I was just listening to the news, and that's where I was So I found about it on work on the Thursday, but the walk I did on Thursday, it was the Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons. And I can't remember the last time Boris was
bad, man.
Unanimously, everybody's in agreement and everyone's saying aye. And as I was on the last stretch, to my house, I don't know if you remember, I think it's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in the actual gameplay or the special missions, but there's a bit where Russians invade America. And they take over like a Taco Bell and they take over all these things and you have to go. And it all, it just came back to me. I was like, well, I'm walking here. Imagine air raid sirens went off here. Where would you go? Imagine they started bombing the UK. Like, we're lucky enough to not have lived in a war.
Yeah.
I met a guy last Friday, a patient who came in Indy, 87 years old, right? He came in with shortness of breath, and really sadly, his wife had actually passed away on that day. That day he's in hospital, his wife passed away somewhere else. So that was really sad. And we started talking about the Second World War. We were talking about the context of Ukraine first. And he was like, I remember the Second World War. I said, what do you remember? He said, well, I remember being a young boy and we went into the bunker at the end of the garden overnight. And he goes, I came out in the morning and the back of the house was just gone. Wow. Almost like that scene in Saving Private Ryan, where they're in France and you can see kind of into a living room and into a room. He goes, I could see through the house into the street. And he goes, that was it. And you just kind of, you went about rebuilding your house.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, imagine that. That's the place you lived at and you were just a few feet away from it.
Bang.
And that all happened bang in front of your eyes. I mean, it's nuts, man. Everything happening in Russia and Ukraine. I mean, obviously there's a lot for us to dissect and talk about. Where do you want to start? So what I'm saying is the highlights thing is important because it brings me into quite a depressed state hearing and thinking about it all day. Like I can't do it. I have to distance myself from it during the day, like have breaks from it because as you said, it's great having this much information, but it turns into full overload and it starts giving you like anxiety because you feel quite helpless. You can't do anything about it. You can't really change much. You just sit and just watch it unfold. And you can get educated on it, but there's not really much you can do in terms of going to serve if you wanted to, unless you are a Ukrainian citizen. And you can potentially fund their military by donating. That's pretty much all you can do at this moment. I think you can donate clothes, but it just seems it's probably one of the most powerless things that people feel like they're
futile.
Yeah, they're just a part of you. All you can do is just sit and watch. That's it. And you could try and put pressure on your local MP to apply more sanctions. What I didn't like the UK government did was they applied sanctions really late to oligarchs that had already been sanctioned years ago in America. And it's just like they're really slow to act. And I don't know why they're slow to act. I mean, well, I do know why. I'll let people try and figure that out themselves. But they're really slow to act. And it's just kind of telling that, yeah, they're not really operating in the best interest of the Ukrainian people and to stop a world war. They're just being really like dragging their feet over restrictions and over sanctions.
But as a collective now, again, President Biden said something was really good because people kept asking same question. Are sanctions going to be?
All he says is, "I'm not going to invade." That's it.
Yeah, he did say that, but he said, "Look, sanctions, the quality or the outcome or the imposition, the benefit of the sanction, it's going to take a minimum of a month to see the effect of that." Okay, it's not we put a sanction today and tomorrow Russia's like, oh, and we keep hearing about Putin's got 600 billion in reserves. I think I'm saying that number right. That's a lot of money.
He's got that in reserves.
Or the government or whatever. Not as in they're like, we knew this was going to come. There's ramifications, and so therefore we've got this reserve, right? Which is to weather the storm, see out the winter, blah blah blah. So yes, it will take its time, but obviously we are seeing these things like the ruble dropping against the dollar and the pound
substantially. It's not even funny. It's crazy.
Interest rates going up to 20%. They said so. As I had something really interesting on the news today, which we can come on to later if you want, which is about the current situation in Kyiv and now what it looks like is going to be the siege. It's up to you if you want to cover that later.
Yeah, let's try and do it in chronological order.
Fine. You go.
Yeah. So where were we? So the sanctions have been put in place and it's taken a fucking long time to kick in. And what what you are seeing is that the sanctions are slowly starting to work, but there's a bit of a tipping point where you push someone beyond the realm of kind of fixing it. And I've the only place I can draw a comparison against is Afghanistan. Yeah. So Afghanistan's under severe restrictions because, or sanctions, sorry, I keep getting that word mixed up. Forgive me, right? But it's all heavily sanctioned, the entire country. So they can't have any money coming in, any money going out. But what you've got there, because it's being run by terrorists, is you've got like a messed up state where people are selling organs to fund their way of life. So people are selling kidneys, like it's standard to sell a kidney in your village to earn money. Now a kidney used to go for about 3-4 grand. Because so many people were doing it, it's dropped to $1,000.
3-4 grand. The kidney should be worth like 100 grand or £1 million.
It should be, but if you think of it in this way, because they're so desperate, and there's again basic law of supply and demand. If everyone's doing it,
well, everyone's got a kidney.
Yeah, so there's that happening. But then there's also, this is quite dark. There's people selling their children to other families that can't have kids because they can't afford to feed them. And that's
so it's a win-win.
Well, it's not really a win-win. It's sort of you lose your kid, man, but you have to sell your kid because you can't afford to feed them. You can just give your kid away, obviously, but they need to get something out of it, don't they?
Yeah, so it's just like putting it into adoption foster. That's that's nothing. Yeah.
So it does show that severely sanctioning a country doesn't always work. It can backfire quite heavily. And obviously, it's a terrorist-run country, but lessons can be learned that the sanctions they put on Russia, you can sort of draw slight comparisons. It's not a perfect example, but it's the nearest thing to a live example we have today. And in Russia, it's obviously not a third world country. They're, I don't know, up and coming, but it's still very well known across the world. It's very, it's a
superpower, man.
Okay, all right. I'll strip it back to basic points. There's white people there in it, right? Compared to, say, Middle Eastern people in another country. Because there are white people there, it's more, what's the word, relatable for other people to sort of see that and think, oh shit, that's actually quite close to us, or we can understand it a bit more, compared to, say, something that's really far removed in the Middle East, because that's not in the same continent as you. So you don't acknowledge that happening because it's closer to your doorstep. You're thinking, oh God, this is a lot of stress to sort of take on. And it's actually quite real. I think that's starting to shine through a lot more, which is fine. But I just need people to understand that there are other things like this happening across the world that have gone through and are further along. And take a look at that, and you can probably see where this might go if things carry on the way they are.
So play that. So reparations go in, and Russia becomes crippled. Then what?
They'll carry on.
But how can you if you haven't got the resources to carry on? That's the point, isn't it?
When you say you haven't got the resources, what do you mean exactly? Because the resources are already there. You've already got the soldiers. You've already got the military. You've already got everything there and set up.
True, but all these soldiers still need weapons, which cries. Everything is money, doesn't it? You can't sustain something without money. There's a cost for everything. So you're right. Yeah, there's a manpower. One is manpower, and you can't obviously create more manpower. You could buy more manpower, mercenaries. Dad will do that.
But he can go into those federal reserves that you're saying, basically. They can keep going
exactly. He's got it. Yeah, like he's got a pot, and it's whether. Look, Russia's not like any other country. Like, if you thought this is the work of a madman, you thought this was. If you're in Russia now thinking that this man is like Hitler, right? And this is another country, then you think, vote in confidence, get this person out, get him away from the nuclear buttons.
It's a dictatorship over there. There's no.
But it's a dictatorship, isn't it? So exactly. Yeah. So, one of our friends on the weekend that we met over dinner had a very interesting point, and he was like, just imagine if Putin is terminally ill. Right. Got nothing to lose. He's like, I'm going out. Might as well go out with a bang. Press the button as I go up.
Yeah, he could do. But you could say that about any president that has a bee in their bonnet.
Like?
Any of them. Any place that has a nuclear weapon across the world.
No, but here's the difference. So other countries that have nuclear weapons, let's take American example, because it's in loads and loads of films. I think there's a film called Red Notice with Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman. It's never ever going to be one person pressing the button. Multiple people, not deterrence, what's the word? Fail safes. multiple keys, same time, synchronous, like loads of checks, blah, blah, blah. It's not unilateral. Whereas, I don't know what they have in North Korea, but I imagine that's pretty unilateral as well.
Okay, but is it like that in Russia? Is it just one person, one button? That's it.
This is I don't know is the answer. But when I look
that's
at
been
like
verified,
Putin,
and if that's
I look at someone like Putin, yeah, well,
if
this is why the world's taking it seriously.
That's going to cause fear, man.
Yeah. No, look, he's put this thing on high alert on Sunday. Everyone's like,
you must have seen the fucked up videos of people. Well, this is where TikTok can be a bit dangerous. It tells you if they drop a nuke somewhere, how far it goes and what it
the radius.
And it shows you the radius, and it shows you that people within X amount of distance just get vaporized. There's no bodily remains. They're just gone.
It's just
dust.
I remember when I was in school.
It's like an 11-kilometer radius. And what happened to Hiroshima is tiny compared to what they can do today.
Yeah, that was 100. They talked about that was the only time, obviously, 2 atomic bombs dropped, weren't they, in Japan?
I think it was 2. I actually don't know.
I think it was 2, and I think the death count was 150,000 people, and obviously a lot of people who still have the long-lasting effects of that radiation. I remember when I was in school, and our teacher was explaining trying to explain the gravity of what an atomic bomb is, and he said, "Look, if this went off in Birmingham, so we were sitting in Warsaw, he goes, you'd be gone, like done."
Yeah,
no problem. And you're right. I don't know how obviously technology has come on a long way. I don't know at the kind of atomic level, like does that make it more potent in terms of a bomb? But yeah, that's scary, man. Like everyone, I think there's a scene in Terminator 3, The Rise of the Machines, or it's something called Skynet or something, and they show a scene where everybody's firing nukes at each other. It just takes out the world. That's a clip that I think will probably be circulating soon. But yeah, everybody's just firing and just taking each other out.
Yeah,
scary, man.
That's the thing, man. Nukes can be a fucking dangerous and scary thing. Everyone sees them in computer games, but it's until you actually sit and think, "Oh God, that's possible." Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, Karan. Anyone can just say, "What if he just wants to drop a nuke? What if he can do this? What if he can do that?" Yeah, but then if you run into that water, you start going nuts, man.
No, that's dark hole, man.
All of that.
You get anxious. You get very, very anxious, and I think the thing that scares people is no one thought he'd invade Ukraine. He invaded Ukraine, right? Now they're having this kind of like peace talks or whatever, but somebody has to obviously
there are no peace talks, bro. It's all a lie. They've walked away.
Exactly. Well, yeah, except now they're planning the meeting tomorrow again or whatever. But it's like more.
What's mad is like people are going to listen to this in a week, and the whole lay of the land may have changed. So if it has, sorry guys, if it hasn't, and this is still looking the same, cool. But knowing how fast things run, who knows? Because this time last week when we did our other podcast that's out now with Nav, that was the eve of everything happening. The eve of, right? And now we're 6 days later, and look at where we are. So the world moves very quickly, and we're just thinking, "Fuck, man, how can we keep up to date with it all?" It's so
specifically
busy
when it comes to war. The broadcast I was listening to today, these aerial photos they've been talking about. So I think originally they said on the cameras, the drones, it looked like 3 miles worth of convoys, right?
Isn't it 40?
Yeah. And then they said, "Oh, no, sorry. It's actually 40, like just some context there, 40 miles long of armored vehicles," right? And they're like, "Okay, so what's the intention of that?" Well, it kind of makes me remember the scene. You've seen Black Hawk Down?
Karan, you have so many film references, man. It's actually mad. You're on a record right now, man. Go on.
No. Have you seen Black Hawk Down?
Probably, man. Many years ago.
Okay, so they're in, I think, the Mombasa in that film. But essentially, the Somalians are surrounding the American soldiers, and they're trying to the Somalians at this point are trying to siege this area, and it's like kind of what's happening now with Kiev. So this battle historian was talking today, and he said, "Look, if we approximate that Kiev have 10,000 strong Ukrainian soldiers, right? He goes, if defended properly in kind of general warfare kind of tactics, you need at least 10 times that size of force to storm it." So he's basically saying Putin needs at least 100,000 soldiers to take something that's 10,000 strong.
Yeah.
Another person who is undisclosed location in Ukraine was basically saying, "Look, they don't know the lay of the land. We do, i.e. the Ukrainians. And there are certain," here's another movie reference coming for you as well, "there are certain bottlenecks, like in 300, okay?
Yeah.
Remember the pass?
Move past it and you can just kill him.
Yeah, as in, well, it doesn't. Where I think the line they say in 300 is where numbers count for nothing. So if
Yeah,
only this many can fit in there, it doesn't matter if you've got a million behind them. If only this many can get in there, and so
yeah,
they're trying to set all these traps where they bring them in and they just take them out.
yeah.
But I think that's the thing that's going to unfold now. It's this, it is Kiev going to be taken?
Well,
Is it going
yeah,
to be
I
a
think I
siege?
think I think we'll know more in the next 2 days or so, won't we? So it's dark. It's dark. But I do need to throw some caution in the wind about social media. So what I'm seeing is
Fake news, huh?
there's a lot of misleading info on there. So what sort of freaked me out a little bit was when everything was happening and it was the day everything had occurred and all the invasion had been set to happen. You're seeing all these old clips resurface of old wars that people are putting out saying this is happening now in Ukraine. And people just see it and retweet it and like it and share it. And it's just,
It's
it goes
viral.
viral really quick. And you're sitting there thinking, I saw a bunch of stuff and I was like, I don't know if this is real. And I don't know if this is from now or if this is from previous times. It got
Yeah.
so bad that the BBC had to come out and show people an article saying, if you see these clips, these are fake. These aren't necessarily not real,
B-roll.
but they happened at previous wars. Please be
Mm.
aware that this is not true. And now every time I look at something on social media now that I see as a part of it, that's video footage, I question it straight away. I'm like, I can't verify if this is true or real.
No, look, that's important because look, there is obviously propaganda at play as well.
No, but
I
that's not
mean,
propaganda. That's just some person sitting there saying, "I want a bit of traction today. Let me just pull up this old thing and say, look what's happening in Ukraine," and then bam. But it takes a pretty sick individual to sit there and think, "Let me just spread a bunch of misinformation on bombs being dropped," when that's actually happening or could happen in the coming days of a war. That's what freaks me out a little bit.
yeah, true. But I guess if you're trying to make Russia look bad, it probably does that anyway. Whether it's true or not true, bad things are happening.
Yeah, but I
I
don't
agree.
think that they
I
did
agree.
it for
I
the
agree with your point. I don't know what their intention is. Yeah, if they're doing, obviously,
yeah.
they're doing it because they want
It's
to be
the
famous.
intention. I
Fine.
don't think the intention is let's make Russia look bad. It's
Uh,
I just want a bit of traction today. Give me a
mm,
dopamine hit. Let's go. Right?
mm. That's why the news now. I didn't understand why they're doing it until you just made this point. But the news when they show clips now saying these have been verified or these haven't been verified,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
They
that's
they have
that's
to verify them.
verified. Yeah, yeah. So which is yeah, you're right. That's important. And the guy, this Ukrainian person was again saying that not the Ukrainian person, the UN person, when they were talking about the humanitarian side of things and how many people have been displaced, how many people have died, like he said, like there's so many numbers being thrown around. This many soldiers died. This many people have died. This happened. This happened. And she said, well, we don't commit to numbers as quickly because we want to speak to people on the ground and speak to people who know. So we've got an accurate list rather than these kind of speculated lists or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but both sides are saying, like the Russian media, whatever we see in the news, is saying it's very successful. They're laying
Yeah,
down
I've
their
heard about this.
arms.
They're just putting out mad propaganda saying, yeah, it's going well. And people in
Man,
Russia are
the
lapping it up. And Twitter have confirmed that they're restricted in terms of visibility in Russia now. So essentially, they're turning into North Korea a little bit.
Germany,
It's
man.
really
Like so,
similar with the tactics they're
well,
deploying of disillusion and propaganda.
yeah, you can compare to North Korea, but I compare more to Germany, man. Like that's the comparison being made now. And when Hitler came into power, there was the guy. I think it was the Ukrainian ambassador gave the address. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, and he actually said the propaganda is like Joseph Goebbels. He just, the guy who's infamous, obviously, in Hitler's camp in the Second World War, Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda. He just said this is like for like, and then obviously compared Putin to Hitler and the Second World War, and history is repeating itself. And what was really interesting is he had this screenshot printed off of WhatsApp messages between a Russian soldier
Yeah.
and his mother just before he died. And obviously, good. Obviously, you got to check the validity of that and verify it. But if it's true, it basically said that he said, "Mom, we've been sent to Ukraine, and we were told that they would lay down their arms, and
Yeah.
they'd be
Yeah.
happy to see us, and they aren't happy to see us, and we were told we were here to get rid of Nazis, and that's not the case, and da da da." And then yeah, he was killed.
There has been a bit
Now,
of stir of people saying there are some Russian military camps that have just upped and just left all their shit behind.
Deserted.
But I don't know if that's real or not. I've just seen it, so I could be spreading misinformation for all I know. But yeah, if that's a possibility, it shows that people are potentially growing with conscience.
Well, the Russian people are, they're what do you call it? Protesting, right? And we saw
they're starting to see it now because they can't live. They literally can't live. Their currency is becoming worthless, and you can't get dollars. You can't even get dollars anymore.
Hyperinflation will happen. The cost of everything will go up again. So it happened in the Weimar Republic, 1929, I think.
I guess the only difference between now and then is that restrictions. Oh my God, I've done it again, man. Sanctions can be done a lot. They can take a lot. What's the word I'm looking for? They could have more of an impact because what it does is people saying even the little things of I'm going to get on the tube today. I'm going to use Apple Pay. And then they say, the sanctions say we blocked your SWIFT payments. And then that means that Apple Pay can't work through your bank.
I've got to think about how I do this.
So it's like, hang on, I can't even do that. I can't even
tap
to get in.
Basic thing, yeah.
Yeah, which
but
is
lots of basic things. Yeah, no. And look, I think the temptation is Ukraine's been invaded. US send your army, UK send your army, NATO send your army, like boots on the ground, fight, as if, we're playing like a game. And all leaders have made it very, very clear. Boris Johnson today, he was with the Estonian Prime Minister. You can see how much of the news I'm watching. I'm watching it constantly.
Tell me, Jesus Christ, you'll never this into it. I normally run the show. So yeah, go on. Tell me.
Yeah. Like I said, I have a slight different perspective to you. I like to know. I like to be involved. Yes, and he just reiterated again. He's done many addresses. Boris Johnson. He said, we will not be putting boots in the ground in Ukraine, but should they come into a NATO country, and then we would. But even that's a chilling thought, man, because then that effectively is World War III.
Yeah,
and then it's interesting. Okay, fine. You got this, and this. Do China take Russia's side?
Probably.
Where does India sit?
Probably on Russia's side.
They both abstained from the vote, but I read something today that the Chinese government are now extraditing anybody of their nationals from Ukraine.
Did we start calling it World War III yet, or is it when numerous countries get involved that you call it?
No, that is a really good point. What is the definition of World War? Try and Google it.
I assume it's when numerous countries are involved to fight a cause. I think they hints in the name.
So it'd have to be, but at the moment it's the West against Russia, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
And the question has to be, so Putin's point is, well, Ukraine can't join NATO because NATO is on our border, right? So if you take over Ukraine, then you are next to another bordering NATO countries, and what stops you trying to spread even further? And then a lot of people are saying the whole plight about he wants to return it to the original USSR, which I had to go back and look at a map. And there's a lot of territory, man. Like Kazakhstan. I know we joke about Borat all the time.
Yeah.
Kazakhstan is huge, man. Massive country. And all these kind of bordering countries, Ukraine being one of them. The old the Soviet Union.
Do you remember history? Like, did this go back to the Battle of Stalingrad, or something like that?
No, the fall of the Soviet Union. I think it was in 1991. That's when they took.
Why did it fall?
Curtain was lifted. It was the end of the Cold War, wasn't it?
Oh, that's why. Okay.
I think without have check my history, and obviously our listeners and viewers can tell us. I did more. Yeah, my school history was more Hitler and World War II. We didn't really.
Yeah, same. Yeah, that's the
same curriculum. I think you covered it if you did A level, which I regret not doing now. I loved history, but side point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other interesting point, man, is we talked about nukes earlier. Just to finish on that point, I looked at that thing I was telling you on the weekend. It was the Brussels Agreement in 1994, which basically meant for the disarmament and removal of nukes from Ukraine on the provision that if Russia were to invade,
the West would back them.
Right. So where's that, man? Yeah, you got rid of your deterrent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have kept
And
it.
what they're saying is, we are backing you. We're giving you military equipment and stuff. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
but they need people. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
the put it this way: if Kiev falls, I think Ukraine's done, man.
This is my point. You know, I was actually thinking about it again on my walk. I was like, the the Ukrainian president is so outspoken, and he's saying all the right things, and true Surma man, true warrior he is.
Rated to him, man. He's standing there still fighting. He didn't
No,
flee. He's like,
absolutely,
no, I'm
man.
here.
No, he's like, I'm here. He said, I almost feel like he's gonna come out and just say, like, what is it gonna take? Do we all need to die basically for you guys to intervene in terms of physical boots on the ground?
Yeah, I don't blame him for thinking that, because you're
he hasn't said it,
thinking,
but
at what
I'm
point
thinking
is
at what
help going
point?
to come?
At what point? Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, yeah. I think that's the thing that I'm.
What do you
thinking
think the
about now as well.
hesitancy is for them to actually just deploy the army? I think
Because
we're going to take
deploying
every
the army
single step
is
possible.
deploying the army equals World War III, and then it's the West saying it's World War III. Because at the moment, it's Putin say don't get involved. It's between us and Ukraine. You get involved and you make it personal World War III. And I think the other thing they're scared about is, well, he's already put the nukes on high alert based on them not even putting boots on the ground. You put boots on the ground, where the hell is he going to go next?
And Russia already has a bunch of trade that it does with the West. So whether it's natural resources and all of that, that's all a big thing. So if you burn those bridges, you're not going to get them back straight away after if Russia pulls out.
Yeah, this was the whole thing about the SWIFT payments, wasn't it? So they needed more kind of unilateral agreement on this. And countries like Germany, for example, because they're so heavily dependent on Russia for certain
for gas and
fossil
stuff,
fuels, natural resources, then it's difficult, isn't it? And obviously the other things like, sustainable energy, like, again, it's not a quick fix. That's like 10, 20 years down the line, man. Like, it takes time. I think as UK, we have other sources and we have a small percentage that's reliant on Russia. But yes, some countries are heavily reliant. And so they need another source, which will obviously come at a cost. And then they have to develop their own things. But I guess the learning point for the world is, you can't be in a position, you can't trust Russia ever again. And you can't be in a position where you're reliant for any number of reasons.
I think if you're sitting there and you're Putin, you're thinking this is a masterstroke because
they need me.
Please don't. Hang on, hold on. It's a masterstroke in terms of he's timed this well. So he knows that everyone's still recovering from the economic hit that everyone's taken for the last 2 years of COVID. Now is pretty much a good time for them to go in and think not everybody else can fully back it financially if they wanted to. They can, but they're probably still recovering from taking a big hit for the last 2 years, that they don't just want to jump straight into this. So he's thinking, I'm going to keep pushing as far as I can because now's the right time to push.
So, and on that line, what do you think his end game is?
He wants the whole of Ukraine. That's it.
And beyond Ukraine, he stops there?
I have no idea. Beyond that, I genuinely, only he can tell you that. I don't know what his intentions are after that. Everyone thinks that his intention is to reinstate the USSR back to how it was. That's what he's probably thinking, because he's saying NATO has gone too far. Ukraine was supposed to join the EU. It kept trying for years, and we were angry that they kept trying and they kept trying to join NATO. Now. Well, I don't know if it will happen now. If there's no country left to join, how's it going to join?
What's the point?
Right?
It's
dark real quick when you try and think about things like this to that level.
Somebody said today, again, I think it was a Ukrainian journalist, but in the UK, or a Ukrainian national living in the UK, and they were making this point about, extradite. So they were talking to BBC, so they were saying extradite all the oligarchs, right? Their family members.
Was this the question that the journalist put to Boris Johnson?
No, I didn't. What was that question?
Similar to what you're saying, but carry on.
Right. And then the person went, well, Putin's daughter's in Europe, or daughter or whatever family member, and they were like, get rid of her, send her back, or like hold a hostage. Like they were saying these things. They didn't say the hostage bit, but that's kind of like what he was implying. And it was like, put real pressure on them, get rid of them all.
And that journalist was saying the same thing, which is, why aren't you going to take them out of their mansions and stuff over there? when we've got kids over there who are struggling to get across the border, their kids of the world leaders or the oligarchs just chilling in mansions abroad. So why don't you go and get them first? Why don't you apply sanctions on them? Mm-hmm. And I was like, very fair point. Why don't they?
Fair point, because look, all these people who are genuinely, more friendly with Putin, to the oligarchs, right? If they feel that their way of life is being impinged, then they're much more likely to kick up a fuss. Like, there's protesting normal people in Russia. Putin's like, there's the ultra billionaires. If they say something, he might, he's more likely to take it to heart. So appealing to them and showing that it's going to be tough for them is a good move. But all this stuff takes time, man. It's just, the question is, these are all holding tactics. Like somebody said today that it's okay, it's good that there are channels open for humanitarian things, but that's not fixing the problem. That's just trying to help the situation.
Yeah.
So how long do they have? That's the point, until they overrun. Can they hold it? And if I'm really honest, when it happened, now I don't know much about Ukraine. I know a lot about Ukraine now. Didn't know at the start of the conflict. But when you think about Russia and how bloody big it is, and you think about Rocky IV, and they're just like this, they're all machines, right? That's the perception I have of Russia.
You and your bloody films, man.
It's all about films, right? So I'm like, my God, they're going to run through Ukraine, man. They're just going to walk through like a whole row of Terminators and just go, that was my perception. I was like, this is going to be easy for Russia, man. Like, who can stand up to Russia? Only America can stand up to Russia.
Well, they have the third biggest army in the world, so...
Who's the first? America?
I think America's first.
Second, India?
Don't know. Let's have a look, actually.
I think India was the third, actually. That's based on the film.
Biggest, armies list. Here we go.
London.
Russia's fifth. Sorry, Russia's fifth.
One second.
China, India.
China's first?
Yeah.
No way.
China, India, the US, North Korea, Russia.
North Korea?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, tiny little country. So they're always doing military parades, aren't they?
See what I mean?
The thing is, no one actually knows. No one actually knows North Korea. They just keep saying it, man. You'd never know. You can't verify that shit. Man. You can't verify that shit, man.
There you go. One thing I've got to add on top of that, Karan, is some stuff on social media. People are asking why there isn't the same energy for Middle East wars happening.
Yeah.
So
I've heard this point.
Things happening in Palestine, stuff happening in Afghanistan. And as I
why
said,
isn't 24/7 coverage?
Stuff about hunger. Why isn't there 24/7 coverage? Because
on hunger,
different. That's why isn't there 24/7 coverage? Yeah. My answer is because this is different. Theirs is domestic issues. So it's like issues within your country of terrorism. This is one country invading another physical country. It's on their doorstep. And frankly, they're more powerful.
Yeah, they're more status, let's say. And I think there's a lot more implications. Yeah. It's not like you said, in-house problem is different to, okay, if this happens, what does it mean for the rest of us in the world?
Yeah.
And, again, the president made a great line. He said, even though we're fighting here, we're fighting for the whole of Europe. This is setting a precedent, what we're
doing. Pretty much.
Yeah. So it has ramifications for all the countries that are involved. But you're right. Why isn't there the same level of scrutiny and thing? And it actually, I don't know if we touched upon it on the weekend. I was trying to remember back to when UK and America invaded Iraq. Saddam Hussein.
For weapons of mass destruction.
No WMDs. Was there the same outroar? Was it because, was there? I know there was lots of protests happening in both countries, but
I think we were too young as well, Karan, sort of. No,
I know, but
and it was a different time. There was no social media or anything. There's
no social media, but what was the perception? But the news was there. The news was there, and how was it perceived? And was it because, okay, again, there was a baddie who's painted as Saddam Hussein, and atrocities were happening, therefore we need to rid the country of this man. Therefore, was it more justifiable? But I am going to go back and re-examine that now.
Yeah, so, I genuinely have no idea what the intention was. I know the intention was to kill bin Laden and get the weapons of mass destruction sorted and all that stuff, but I don't know the build up towards it. I mean, the inquiry about the whole reason for why they invaded only concluded a couple of years ago. So that essentially showed that they invaded incorrectly on false information. So it shows that there was it's an issue that we do need to look back on in history and kind of understand a bit better. I genuinely have no clue.
On the other side, Afghanistan, following 9/11, the whole if you're a conspiracy theorist, then you'll say that 9/11 was an internal job that allowed them to pass these laws, allowed them to then invade Afghanistan so they could get the natural resources. This bigger game that they talk about. And obviously they've exited now, and it's like, well, have they exited now because they've usurped everything they wanted to usurp, and they've moved on.
Yeah.
The intentions for war, the justifications for war, there's so many layers to it. And you're right. It's only after a period of reflection you look at it and you think
it's not easy, man. You can't.
It's not like this equals this.
It's like no. It's got so many faces to it. You don't know which one to believe or which one is the real driving factor. And again, no one's going to know, because everything that Putin says, you can't. It doesn't seem to be true or false. It's like, what are you on about? It's like the ramblings of a madman.
His threat on the first day, though, bloody hell. I mean,
what was his threat on the first day?
If you want to see somebody give a threat, a real threat, not implied threat, like a real threat.
He said, "Let me be clear," and then he gave that speech.
Yeah, let me be clear. If anybody outside interferes or intervenes, then something will happen to you that's never happened in your history.
Like, there you go, nuke.
Right? No messing about. Yeah. No messing about. I do. Yeah, I agree with what you said. It is ramblings of a madman. I saw one of the papers the other day. It was called Mad Vlad.
Good rhyming sensation there.
Yeah.
I'll give that a 6 out of 10 for journalistic impact. There are other headlines surrounding this, though. So, Afghan refugees can't flee in Ukraine.
Afghan refugees can't flee in Ukraine. Okay, as in they're not giving special.
In Ukraine, it's actually quite a big attraction point for people that are looking to study, and they get a lot of
medical students, man. So many medical students been on the news.
They get medical students to go there, right? So over 20% of their 20% of students in Ukraine are African, which is, I didn't even know
a lot. Yeah, right? I don't know.
But there's a lot of information being put out there of Black people and even Indian people being stopped at borders and told they can't cross.
As in other people have been prioritized.
They're not allowed to cross over. And it's weird because there's no logical reason why you would do that. The reason really is simply because of their skin color. And the reason why I can back that up is because there's no paperwork that needs to be done to process you to cross the border as a refugee. You don't need visas. You don't even need a passport that's in date. So what would the logical reason be to stop somebody from crossing over?
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So you're just valuing someone's life less.
So you're valuing people based on, again, at a time of a humanitarian crisis, somehow they managed to weave in black and white. And that's what I find hysterical, but also unbelievable. How can you do that at a time like this? Just let them through, let people through. They'll be like, oh yeah, you, oh no, not you. I'm like, hang on.
You go fight. Yeah.
No, it isn't even you go fight. It's you stay here. And apparently the issue is at the Polish border. It's not anywhere else. So Nigerian students and South African students have been told to stop going to the Polish border and to go to other borders. So there's other borders available in Romania, I think it is, for them to cross through. They've been told to make their way there to go and cross through.
Okay. I received a message yesterday in one of our WhatsApp groups, which was some information essentially from an Indian consulate, which was arranging for buses to pick up at borders students and whatever. So there has been some movement from the Indian government, at least. But yeah, that is not what you'd expect, man.
It's dark. It's dark because
like how can a crisis and chaos on this magnitude not simplify things and equalize things? If that doesn't do it,
there are clips
there
are clips circulating online which clearly are true, because you can see aggression from locals in Ukraine stopping people from crossing over into Poland because I can't understand the language. But it seems like it's being really enforced at like a local level. Don't let them pass through. Let other people through first as priority. They can go afterwards, which isn't right. I mean, it's horrible, man. And this has already come to light because one of the benefits of social media, there was a hashtag called African Ukrainian or something, or Africa Ukraine. And that was showing all these little clips, and journalists are starting to pick up on it, saying, well, why are they not being allowed over through crossing?
Somebody asked it to a Ukrainian person on the border. He said, they asked, like, is that person also going to be allowed? Are they going to be allowed? And that person, well, I don't know, but he basically said, I don't know. That's not my decision. It was a volunteer they were asking. But you're right, journalists have picked up on this thing, and it's good that they're putting some light on it.
Yeah, and some people were talking about being kicked off trains because the officials were taking on, well, they weren't taking non-Ukrainian people and non-Europeans, but they were specifically told that Black Africans could not get on the trains. So this is all stuff that's been put through by people on the ground that have obviously struggled to make passage out of the country.
And again, what's your agenda, man? Like,
I think the agenda is that our country first, everything else second. That's the agenda.
Okay, but if you're receiving, refugees of war, then what is it? What do you think is going to happen with colored people? What are they going to do?
But their life isn't worth as much.
Yeah, but why isn't it? Again, it comes back to our point about racism, how it's really deeply ingrained, and even this level of chaos is not enough to.
It's not enough to just shed it all and be like,
disrupt that pattern of thought, which is worrying, very worrying. Like, there's not much else that can top this, man.
No. Do you think that this will be an old news story and it will fall away quite quickly? Or do you think that this is going to be the big news story that COVID was for the last 2 years and it's just going to take its spot? Because, Karan, when I was prepping for this podcast today, I couldn't find anything not related to Russia
on the news.
It's unbelievable, man. I was jumping through so many different news websites trying to look for alternative news articles just to see if there's anything else popping off. The only thing I can find was that MP thing I found at the beginning. That's it. Nothing else is getting traction. Nothing else is important. It's just that. So if you're smart in government, you sneak through a bunch of shit now and don't tell anyone because it's not going to get picked up or it's not going to get caught.
Laws and bills. Yeah, potentially. To answer your question, which one do I think it is? I think it's going to be the latter. I think it's just going to remain, all the traction there, all the attention is going to be there. I'm just trying to think about, and if you give an example, so like the farmers' protest in India, that was like the other one where it kind of, or I Pledge Orange, that came while
that came and went. That came and went.
You know what I mean? Or let's talk about the farmers' protest because that was there for a long time. Maybe,
but that came and went.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It came and went, didn't it? So that was a big thing. It was ongoing, had some traction, and then just fizzled until it kind of came back when obviously they won.
Yeah.
So, but I think for the war, I think all eyes are on it. Until what's going to happen is imagine if the Prime Minister himself gets shot and killed.
Who, Boris?
No, not Boris. The Ukrainian.
Oh, him. Well,
he's on the front line.
I don't know what happens in that case if your Prime Minister is killed or your president is killed.
Yeah. Do you put your arms down? Like, is that it?
No. Do you? No. Does it default to the vice president?
Yeah.
And then does it move through your cabinet?
Yeah. Like it's what they call the designated survivor. There's a whole program about it on Netflix.
Okay.
It's a good show, by the way. You should definitely watch it.
Some of these war programs get a bit too out of hand, don't it?
There's no war program though. Designated survivors. It's about like House of Cards. It's about US president.
I see. Okay.
On any given day, one person will not sit in, say, the Congress or the House. Let's say take like the House of Lords or whatever. I don't know if this concept exists in the UK, but it is in America. And the premise for that show is basically at the start, the bomb goes off, everybody dies, but the designated survivor obviously isn't there because he's designated survivor, and he then becomes president.
The Pradhan. Okay.
That's it. That's the concept. So, no, I didn't mean from what happens to leadership. I was thinking more the message that goes out into the world. And this is what I thought was going today. Is it going to take us to be martyred, kind of like the end of 300? What happened in 300? They wouldn't send the soldiers, wouldn't send the full army to Sparta. He has to go off with 300. They all die, and then the next year, the whole army comes. Remember?
Yeah.
And that was the rise of Sparta. And it's like, what is it going to take? Is it going to take our shahidi? Is it going to take our martyrdom for you to act? And that's what I think about. And I'm like, that makes me really sad, man. Because then you look at all these things he's been pointing out, saying, come on, guys, please, come on now. Look where they are, look what's happening. Do something.
But they don't want a war either, Garan. They don't want to send boots on the ground. They don't want to do it.
Who don't want boots?
The rest of the world, they don't.
No, that's what I mean. I'm on about Ukraine. I'm talking about Ukraine's perspective.
Oh no! In Ukraine, obviously, they want the assistance.
Yeah,
why wouldn't you? I mean, shit, man. If it happened here in England, people
like America
want assistance straight away.
Send your boys over, man. Yeah.
No, that would never happen. I reckon they would sit on a fence and wait.
America.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We've got a special relationship.
My chitter, man.
No. Because in times like that, you don't want to act, and we're going to expose all the shit on you. This is where blackmail comes in. Okay. The one thing that England has, it has shit on everybody. And then it all comes to light. It's like, look, all your presidents, we got some stuff, and we're just going to leak that shit.
Drop it on straight away.
Send your boys on it. But sorry, I meant from their perspective. Look, everybody is looking at Biden, man. Biden moves against Second World War. Second World War was saved because America got involved. America got involved because Pearl Harbor happened, right? So if America gets involved militarily, boots on the ground, everybody's involved. They're the big boys. They bring everybody to the party. Yeah. And he knows that, and it's a big if, man. And he knows everybody's looking at him. And that's, you don't just take that move, man. You don't just take that move, and you hope that, Putin just ceasefire, even if he takes Kiev and there's a ceasefire, and then you can negotiate.
Why would he do a ceasefire? He's going to carry on.
No. What I mean is, if he takes the country and he doesn't want to expand beyond that.
Oh, I thought you said if he takes Kiev. I'm like, no, he's going to carry on.
No, but Kiev is the capital. Like, if everything falls, if he has the capital, kind of central leadership's there, whatever. Then that's still so. Okay, you haven't got your country, but there isn't a war, and then you work on diplomacy. Yeah, that still has. I mean, the only end point at this point is stop the war, and then think about the other shit. The solutions and democracy.
It's true. Here's a question, Karan. If the UK was to go to war tomorrow,
what would I do?
Say the UK was getting invaded, would you go to war?
In the UK?
Yeah.
Me and Shinny were talking about this. So it depends on two things. If I can ensure the safety of my family, so they weren't here, so they were shipped off, let's say, to India. Okay.
No, I reckon. Okay, let's play this out properly. Yeah, in our heads.
Go on.
Bunker style, right? Everyone gets taken into underground bunkers. People sleeping in tube stations and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all the men are summoned to go and fight for similar to how it is in Ukraine, 18 to 60.
Yeah, I think my role would be slightly different because I'd be a military doctor then.
Because you got that little get out of jail card.
Yeah, but outside of that, I'd want to get trained, arms trained, and then what I perceive that I would do is focus on, in small groups of us, focus on guerrilla warfare, like the Vietnam War. So just, the big force coming to invade. Focus on small things where you can have impact and move on. It's not sexy, but it works. That's what
I don't know if I would.
But because if you can't leave, what would you do?
I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. But I'd be really, really torn to fight for the UK because the UK just doesn't love minorities, man. It just doesn't. Even though people feel patriotic about it and stuff, I get it. But it's sort of like a not what have you done for me now kind of thing. It's more so the relationship that you've built with the minority people has just been pissed on time and time again. And when you need us to come through, we'll come through for you. And then it will go back to the old arrangement. It would just go through that cycle again and again. So why would you want to? I get if you're forced to, that's fine, right? But it's more so you've worn people down to a point where, like, if you've got a bad relationship of some sort, and you're stuck in that bad relationship and you're forced to be there forever because you're there for the kids or whatever, man. It just seems like even though things have gotten difficult for both of us now and you need me in this moment, why should I be there for you when you were so bad to me up until this point?
See, that's why I take issue in that last point you said, when you've been so bad to me. If I look at my life now as a minority living in the UK, 31 years of age, UK's given me everything.
When I say me, I mean our people. Like,
yeah, but that's
minority people.
Hard, that's too hard to extrapolate for me. What's my personal experience of that? I can generalize and be like, oh,
it's not too hard for you, Goran.
Let me ask you the question.
Hang on.
How hard is your life?
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean that I can't understand and accept that life has been difficult for other people.
You can understand,
and equally, I can acknowledge that stuff like that wasn't. I can acknowledge that all of those things were not fixed and they were not cleaned up, or they were not acknowledged, or they were not, even just things were not cleared up. Nothing was ever cleared up. It was just swept under this big ass carpet, and that's it. We'll just move on again and again. And no lessons have been learned. Nothing's changed. Nothing's gone differently. It's all still deep rooted in there. The top level stuff has changed. That's great, but the deep rooted issues still lie. That's where I take issue with it. I'm lucky, and you're lucky too, that we haven't had to deal with a lot of that shit. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that the love I have for this nation or how we've been treated should equate to my personal experience. It should be a holistic experience across what everybody else has had.
Yeah, I disagree. To me, that's a cop out. It's, if my experience is affected by it, then I have something to say. Otherwise, why would I live here? Like, you have no right to live here. You should just go and live somewhere else. Is my viewpoint on that.
Why though?
If I'm gonna live here, then yeah, I will protect it because this is my home. That's my viewpoint on it.
No, I don't know, man.
No, your viewpoint is your viewpoint. That's fine.
No. I'm just trying to explore this a little bit more. I don't think it's that simple of like, well, don't live here then, because where else am I supposed to go?
That's up to you, isn't it? That's where do you affiliate with? And it's this question we asked on the weekend. It's like, okay, where would you defend? And you said nowhere. Which doesn't make any exactly. Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Which means you have no affiliation with anywhere. Then, so what? Which is home?
Genuinely sometimes how I feel about just living in this country. I don't know. The only people I would defend are my friends and family. That's pretty much it. Beyond that, it's like,
so what's the difference between defending friends and family and your country? Then that's what you're defending, isn't it? You know, if your family is here and you have to fight for their safety, then you do it, wouldn't you? So however you call it, it's how you think it in your head, isn't it? Call it friend and family. If I'm finding my country here, then I would think, okay, it's for the safety and equality, not equality, for the freedom of friends and family, so they can live, freely.
Yeah,
I think it's how you make it right in your head. You obviously must or would fight for something. Let's not call it a place, because I think that's where we're saying it may not be a place.
I think I would fight for something. Yeah, I understand
something.
That, but...
Yeah. Because there are some people who wouldn't fight for anything as well. I think that's a different strand.
No, I think I will fight for the things that I've said at the moment. I just still can't justify it to myself unless there is some acknowledgement from the government that they've done all these things up until now, or the British Empire has done all these things till now. A lot of it's just not been acknowledged, or it's not been checked, or it's not being cleared up. It's just you figure it out on your own that this has happened, and there's no real set acknowledgement like, yes, we did this. For example, in Germany, they said Hitler was a bad person. This happened. The concentration camps happened. They didn't try and sweep it up. They just said, yeah, it happened and we've learned from it. That's the best way of doing it. The UK's never done that.
Who said that we've got concentration camps?
No, I haven't said that we've got concentration camps. I'm giving the example.
But who acknowledged it? That's what I'm asking.
So the Germans acknowledged that Auschwitz happened, and they acknowledged that the concentration camps happened.
No, but it wasn't the Germans that acknowledged it. It was that they were found out.
But they were found out. Okay, but in the same way,
it was exposed. Yeah, but then everything you're saying about
the British Empire has
been exposed. It has been exposed.
Yeah. But equally, they teach it. They speak about it openly. They don't try and hide it. If you try and bring that up now in society, a lot of people don't know about it, or they have no idea it happened. That's what I take issue with.
The awareness level. So let's take
the awareness level, and also them saying, yes, what happened there was fundamentally wrong and it shouldn't happen again.
That statement. That yes. So okay, I understand what you're saying now. So let's say David Cameron, when he went to Amritsar, Jallianwala Massacre, in his term, I think he came all the way up, but he didn't apologize.
That's where I take issue with it.
Right?
I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No,
fucking
okay.
apologize.
Like you're here now. Like, just how does that
What's stopping
deposition
you from
you in the
saying
world?
sorry right now?
Yeah, and it doesn't
Right?
deposition. Yeah, I
Or
agree with
even
that.
how Sikhs have begged to be shown the extent that the British intelligence was in cahoots with the Indian intelligence ahead of 1984. They've asked for those papers to be put out there numerous times, and they keep locking it for like more and more years. Why? Because there's something in there that clearly incriminates them. Something, right? The same way how Windrush happened. I understand now that how it all happened and why it happened, but they still let it go through, and it still went ahead. Shit like that scares me, man. And the same way with the national borders bill that I've spoken to you about on this podcast.
Yep.
That's still going ahead. We're second class citizens, me and you, Karan, in British citizenship. Doesn't that scare you? And then you expect me to go and fight for you? What? So I'm a second class citizen, but I'm a real citizen when you want me to be your citizen. But then when I don't want that taken away, or if I'm asking you to treat me the same, you won't do it. So why the fuck would I fight for you then? See?
Again, it's who you're saying you're fighting for. If my
I
friends and
know.
family
I
here, I'm gonna live
understand your
here.
point of who you're fighting for, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
It's
the
what
part
you
that I
call it
take
though.
issue
Yeah,
with.
yeah. Calling it this does not fit in with your thinking. Which look at that final point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
I do have a couple of things to liven it up a little bit on the podcast to have a lighter note. There are two positive stories that have come out of this whole Russia thing. I know it's been a very Russia heavy podcast. So two positive things. Number one, $13.7 million in Bitcoin has been donated to Ukraine through anonymous donations publicized by the Twitter account of Ukraine. That's unbelievable. I know I've said unbelievable a lot in this podcast, but that's really, really useful because they can use those cryptocurrencies. Apparently, $5.4 million was donated in 8 hours after they gave the wallet addresses. So there's still hope for speed, humanity, man. And there's still hope for people trying to help out in any way that they can. I don't know how the markets are looking in cryptocurrency at the moment, but still, 5.4 million of anything is still good, and it will go up and down in value however they see fit. Yeah, it's obviously much more effective than having rubles, isn't it? And secondly, Elon Musk donated a bunch of satellite dishes to Ukraine to help them with their internet connection. Yeah, Starlink. That's another charitable thing he didn't have to do.
Yeah, I didn't understand what the point was, but then I guess maybe the access has all been cut because of the war.
So the point is, it's future-proofing them. So at the moment, the internet connection is stable, but say if war does full-fledged go ahead in some regions, you're going to drop out an internet connection, your power is going to drop out, etc.
Yes. They said this today, actually.
What this does is it essentially future-proofs them a little bit. It still gives them connectivity to the rest of the world. However, there has been some caution thrown into the wind of saying, yeah, but by doing that, you're making yourselves a beacon to be targeted upon for having those satellites up, because people know that some people are going to be living there or residing there, and they can be used as targets for, I don't know, drone strikes or something.
Can you see the satellites? Is that low?
No, it's not the satellites. It's the dishes that are going up, pointing at the satellite.
Oh, so you know, okay.
So you know which is which, right?
Yeah, so you need more like a...
So it needs to be sort of hidden how you do
secret
it.
way of the disc.
Yeah.
But that again,
maybe you can paint it green. I don't know.
I think it was a tweet, wasn't it? They tweeted Elon Musk and he just replied, didn't he? He was like,
and he did. He just sent it. That's it. Done. Here you go.
Yeah.
And he's not going to charge him for it, apparently. So
makes sense.
It shows that if you have money in the right way, Karan, it can be done. Do you remember how you were saying on the weekend that when those millionaires out there are still, not even on the weekend, actually, it was last week on the podcast, you were saying all those millionaires out there just in it for the game. They're just in it for like the super wealthy, you're just in it for like who can get to space first, etc. But Elon Musk is clearly one of them, and he's chosen to sort of go down this pathway of actually helping out. If the other, I don't know, world famous massive investors or billionaires did the same thing, could be for a good cause. Depends if they want to do it though.
If they want to be altruistic, yep, absolutely not.
There we go. You got anything else to add?
Is that your final point, or?
That's my final point. I mean, there's there's some positivity that's still happening out there. There's still some humanitarian efforts. People are still trying to help out
there is a lot which is good. Of humanitarian efforts going on, so thankful for that. And I think we just have to acknowledge that in 2022 something like this can happen, and we're never that far away from real life-changing conflict. And that my message to all the listeners and viewers this week is, get educated, tell people about this so they know what's happening, and in whichever way you can help, even if that's doing a prayer, then please do something. That's what I want to say. Just keep the Ukrainian people in your hearts and minds as you go about your day, and remember the value of your freedom each day.
And I don't think we'll be doing a full episode on this again, but we'll try and keep it light for the coming weeks. I'll try and do some more in-depth research on YouTube videos about culture issues instead, because the news is just going to be dominated by this. And I don't want to turn this into a war podcast. It's not really our forte.
A war podcast.
Right? But we can talk about other shit.
But it isn't good for absolutely nothing. Ha! You got to say,
mate, I wish that they were playing that. Imagine if they were when they're going into war. That'd be great.
Rush Hour.
Anyway, guys,
just count the number of movie references in this podcast. That's the last one, by the way. Rush Hour.
Do, tell us how many movie references are coming in this podcast that you think. I think it's probably about 7, but let's see.
I think double digits, but okay, yeah,
double digits. Well, they're all by you, mate. They're not by me. There we go. Right, cheers, guys. We will catch you next week. Please do like, comment, share, and subscribe, and drop us a message and let us know your thoughts on this podcast. We'll catch you next week. Cheers.